For problem number 1, you have 7.2 plus 9.5. So you first want to line up the decimal places and add. So 5 plus 2 is 7, and 7 plus 9 is 16. And then you bring down your decimal places to get 16.7. For problem number 2, you have 1.34 plus 2. You need to be careful lining up the decimal with this problem because the 2 is in the ones place, so you have to put it right there. And then add them together, and you can add zeros here to help you. So 4 plus 0 is 4, and 3 plus 0 is 3. 1 plus 2 is 3, and then you can bring down your decimal place to get 3.34. In problem number 3, you have 54.5 plus 48.51. Line up your decimal places, and you can add a 0 in here to help you, and add together. And 0 plus 1 is 1, and 5 plus 5 is 10, so you have your 0 and you carry your 1, and then 8 plus 4 plus 1 gives you 13. Have your 3, carry your 1, 5 plus 4 plus 1 is 11. 113.01. In problem number 4, you want to find the difference between 5.6 and 3.5. And line up your decimal places like before, but this time subtract. And 6 minus 5 is 1, and 5 minus 3 is 2. Bringing down your decimal place, that gives you 2.1. In problem number 5, you want to subtract 16.98 from 97. And you should add in your zeros here to help you subtract. So we can't take 8 away from 0, so we need to borrow from the number before it. But since that is also a 0, we need to borrow from the 7, making that a 6, making this a 10, and then borrowing from that to give us a 10 here. So then 10 minus 8 is 2, 9 minus 9 is 0, 6 minus 6 is 0, and 9 minus 1 is 8. And then we bring down our decimal place to give us 80.02. In problem number 6, we're taking 58.67 and subtracting 28.72. So we need to line up our numbers with our decimal places and subtract like normal. So 7 minus 2 is 5. And then you can't subtract 7 from 6, so we need to borrow from the 8. And then 16 minus 7 will give us 9. And then we cannot subtract 8 from 7, so we need to borrow again from the 5, making that 17. And 17 minus 8 gives you 9. And 4 minus 2 gives you 2. And then bringing down your decimal place, you have 29.95. Problem number 7 says, the table shows the top 3 finishers in barrel racing. What is the time difference between Nicolas and Sancho? So we first need to find Nicolas's time and Sancho's time. So we want to know the difference between those two. And since 16.4 is bigger than 14.67, that means that we want to take away the 14.67 from the 16.40. So we want to line them up, 16.40 minus 14.67, lining up the decimal places. Since we can't take away 7 from 0, we need to borrow from the 4. And this gives us 10, so we can take away 7 from 10, giving us 3. Then we want to subtract 6 from 3, but we know that that's not possible, so we need to borrow from the 6, making that 5, and making this 13. So then subtracting 6 from 13, we get 7. Then 5 minus 4 is 1, and 1 minus 1 is 0. And then you can bring down your decimal place to give you 1.37. So your answer to this problem would be 1.73 seconds. In problem number 8, it says in 2 months, Micah spent a total of $305.43 on groceries. She spent $213.20 in the first month. How much did she spend in the second month? So if we know the total that she spent and what she spent in the first month, we need to take away what she spent in the first month from her total so we can find what she spent in the second month. So we want to take 305.43, subtract 213.20. 3 minus 0 is 3, 4 minus 2 is 2, 5 minus 3 is 2, and we can't subtract 1 from 0, so we need to borrow, making this 10, and 10 minus 1 is 9, and 2 minus 2 is 0. When we bring down our decimal places, that gives us 92.23. So she spent $92.23 in the second month. Problem number 9 says that a hat costs $10.95 and a t-shirt costs $14.20. How much change will you receive if you pay for both items with a $50 bill? We can look at this problem in 2 parts. So we start with $50, and we first want to subtract $10.95. And we can add our zeros in to help us subtract. So we're going to need to do a lot of borrowing first. So that's going to give us 10 minus 5 is 5, 9 minus 9 is 0, 9 minus 0 is 9, and 4 minus 1 is 3. Then bring on down our decimal place to give 39.05, but we're not done yet. So then we need to take our 39.05 and subtract what it costs for the t-shirt, $14.20. So then you take 5 minus 0 to get you 5, and we can't take 2 away from 0, so we need to borrow from the 9, making that a 10, and 10 minus 2 is 8. 8 minus 4 is 4, and 3 minus 1 is 2. Bringing down our decimal place, this now gives us an answer of $24.85 back when he pays with a $50 bill. Next, we're going to be looking at number 10. The 4x100 meter relay is a track and field event involving 4 runners on each team. For A, what is the combined time of Carter and Frater? We need to first find their times on the table at the right, and we see that Carter's time is 13.4 and Frater's time is 12. So if we line up our decimal place and add those two together to find the combined time, we can get 4 plus 0 is 4, 3 plus 2 is 5, and 1 plus 1 is 2. And bringing down our decimal place, you get 25.4. So 25.4 seconds is their combined time. Now for B, it says how much faster did Powell run his leg of the race than Bolt? So Powell had a time of 11.7 seconds and Bolt had a time of 12 seconds. So since Bolt had a bigger time, we need to subtract Powell's time from Bolt. But line up the decimal places, and we have to add in a 0 here to help us subtract. Since we can't take 7 away from 0, we need to borrow from the 2, giving us 10 minus 7, which is 3, 1 minus 1 is 0, and 1 minus 1 is 0. So our answer, bringing down the decimal place, is 0.3. So he ran 0.3 seconds faster. Next, part C is asking what the combined total of all of the runners is. So we first need to add up Carter and Freighter, 13.4 plus 12, which we know from above is 25.4. Then we need to add Bolt's time onto this, which is 12. Lining up our decimal place, 4 plus 0 is 4, 5 plus 2 is 7, and 2 plus 1 is 3. When you bring down our decimal place, we'll get 37.4. And then we still have to add on Powell's time. So we have our 37.4, and then adding on our 11.7, lining up the decimal places. 4 plus 7 is going to give us 11. We need to carry that 1. 7 plus 1 gives us 9. And 3 plus 1 is 4. Bringing down our decimal place, we have a combined total of 49.1 seconds. Number 17 is done as an example for us, 4.9 plus 3.0, lining up the decimal place, getting 7.9. Number 18, we're adding 0.796 plus 13. So we need to be careful lining up the decimal place with this problem. Line up the 3 with the 0, and then we can add zeros to help us with our addition in line with our 0.69. So adding 9 and 0, we get 9, and then 6 plus 0, 6, 7 plus 0 is 7, and 0 plus 3 is 3, and then 1, bring down, and then bringing down our decimal place, we get 13.769. Looking at number 19, we're adding 15.63 and 24.36. So we line up our decimal places, and then we can add. The 3 plus 6 will give us 9. The 6 plus the 3 will also give us 9. 5 plus 4 will give us 9. And 2 plus 1 will give us 3. And then we bring our decimal point down, giving us 39.99. In number 20, we're going to be looking at finding the difference. So we want to take away 4.94 from 19.86. So we want to line up our decimal places and then subtract. So taking 4 away from 6, we can get 2. And we cannot take 9 away from 8, so we need to borrow from this 9, making this 18. And taking 9 away from 18 will give us 9. And then we can subtract 4 from 8, giving us 4. And then we can bring down that 1 and our decimal place to give us 14.92. Now in problem 21, we're going to take 82 and subtract 67.18. And we might want to add in our zeros right here to help us out in that subtraction. So we can't take away 8 from 0, so we need to borrow. And since the number to the left is also a 0, we want to go over to that 2 and borrow from there. And then borrow to give us a 10 in our hundredths place. We can take 8 away from 10, now leaving us with 2. And then we take 9 minus 1, giving us 8. We cannot take 7 away from 1, so we need to borrow again, giving us 11 minus 7, which is 4. And then 7 minus 6 is 1. And we bring down our decimal place to give us 14.82. In problem 22, we want to take 14.39 and subtract 12.16, making sure we line up those decimal places and subtract. 9 minus 6 will give us 3. 3 minus 1 will give us 2. 4 minus 2 gives us 2. And 1 minus 1 would be 0. Bring down those decimal places, you get 2.23. For problem number 23, it says the current balance of Tammy's checking account is $273.80. Find the new balance after Tammy writes a check for $29.95. Because she's writing a check, that means she's paying somebody that amount of money. So she's taking that amount of money away from what is in her checking account. So we want to take $237.80 or $237.80 and subtract 29.95. Making sure we line up our decimal places. And then we want to subtract. So we need to borrow from our 8. And 10 minus 5 is 5. And then since we cannot take 9 away from 7, we need to again borrow. And then 17 minus 9 gives us 8. And then let's borrow from our 3. 16 minus 9 is 7. 2 minus 2 is 0. And you bring down our 2, which gives us $207.85 once we bring that decimal place down. In problem number 24, we're looking at the annual rainfall for Castleton Falls, which was 50.38 inches in 2012, and in 2013 it was 55.76 inches. We want to know the difference between rainfall in the 2 years. So they increased in 2013, so we want to put the 55.76 as our top number, so we can take away the smaller number of 50.38 to find our difference. So we need to borrow from our 7, so we can subtract 8 from 16, giving us 8, and then taking 3 away from 6, we get 3. 5 minus 0 gives us 5, and 5 minus 5 is 0. So we bring down our decimal place, giving us 5.38 inches as our difference in rainfall between those 2 years. In problem number 25, we're looking at the melting point in sodium, which is 97.8 degrees Celsius, and the melting point in potassium, which is 63.65 degrees Celsius. We want to know how much higher the melting point is for sodium. So we need to take 97.8 and subtract 63.65. And we can add a 0 right here to help us subtract. Since we can't take 5 away from 0, we need to borrow from the 8. So we can take 5 away from 10, leaving us with 5. And 7 minus 6 gives us 1. 7 minus 3 will give us 4. And 9 minus 6 will give us 3. We bring down our decimal place. We get 34.15 degrees Celsius. In problem number 26, Colin needs 3 wooden boards to replace his porch. The lengths that he needs are 2.2 meters, 2.82 meters, and 4.25 meters. He purchases a board that has 10 meters and cuts 3 sections. We want to know how much of the board that he purchased will be left. So we first need to start with our 10 meter long board, and we can start by taking away the 2.2 meters. Making sure to line up our decimal places, and we can add the 0.0 with the 10 so that we can subtract. So we need to borrow, leaving us with a 9 over here and getting a 10 to take away 2 from 10, and then 9 minus 2 leaves us with 7. Bringing down our decimal place, we have 7.8. Now we need to take away the 2.82. So we can subtract that from our 7.8 and add a 0 to help us subtract. We need to borrow from our 8. So we can take away 2 from 10, giving us 8. And now we need to borrow again so that we can have a 17 right here to take 8 away from 17, leaving us with 9. And then 6 minus 2 is 4. Bring down our decimal place. We have 4.98. And we still have one more length of board to subtract from there, which is 4.25. So we can take 5 away from 8, leaving us with 3. The 9 from the 2, leaving us with 7. And then 4 minus 4 is 0. We still need to bring down that decimal place, and Colin will be left with 0.73 meters.